Right, here we are, the credits. These are long, I know that, so I'm not entirely sure I can fill the entire set of credits with my thoughts. Let's. I like the story in this. I like the fact that it fairly early on it branches out. Pretty much, you have the various origins. Then you have the stuff at Ostagar. So that's like the first 4 hours. And then after that, you're pretty free to go and do other things. So you can go and do. You could go and. Come on, brain. You could go to Lothering, or you don't have to. And then you've got these. You've got various side quests, and you've got the treaties. Like what order are you going to do them in? Are you going to go to Redcliffe first, as I did, or do you go to the Circle, or do you go to the Brazilian Forest first, or if you're completely insane, do you go to Orzammar first? I think you actually, if you try that, you get beaten up by bandits. Do you go to Denerim a little early and try and do some of the side things there that we didn't do? That's some interesting things. Those are interesting questions that you're faced with early on. So I quite like the way it's structured in that regard, and then slowly they kind of, once you finish each one, obviously you get fewer and fewer options until finally you go to Redcliffe, you go back to Redcliffe, and then you go to Denerim, and and then you have this final bit. So I mean, well, that's kind of what's happening. I quite like the fact that I quite like one thing I like about what I've done in this Let's Play is I've put in the DLC, well, most of the DLC. We've still got, in theory, 2 DLCs and expansion to go, which I'm going to take a break from Dragon Age. I have been getting a little frustrated with the combat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, come back, and do Awakening in a bit. I'm not sure when. I'm not sure how long I'll give it. But when I feel like coming back to it, I will. So, where was I going with that? Come right. The other bits of DLC and the Origins kind of slotting in, because they do fit in for the most part. The Dalish Elves, less so. Because I don't think they're the same. I think they're a different tribe, which I think is sad. I think it'd be quite interesting if they were the same tribe and they fit together that way. But unfortunately, they're not, because otherwise there's not really that much of a connection between the Dalish Elf origin. It might actually make more sense. From what I know, is Merrill, I think, is in the second game. So maybe it would have made more sense to have the origin there. I've not played the second game, but I know that Merrill. I know there's an elf called Merrill who has a Welsh accent, so therefore she's awesome. But I think it's. I hope you guys have enjoyed that, having the DLC and origins kind of pop up. In the throughout the Let's Play at hopefully seemingly appropriate moments. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed kind of slotting them in. Thinking back on it, would I have put them in similar places? I might not have put the Darkspawn Chronicles when I did. Thinking on it, I think it would have been better if I'd put that in. As kind of a part of the joining, so he has like the dream sequence. I think that would have worked better than having it just be a random vision of should he join the Grey Ones. Content ID. So yeah, there's that. I had a few problems with the story. So. I already ranted about him, but Logain and the way the game wraps him up. I've got nothing against having the option to execute him then and there, but I don't think the option of letting him be alive should be something that Alistair turns on as he does. I can understand the idea of revenge, but I think it's one of those frustrating things where I think Alistair's perceived as being lawful good in a lot of ways and being like a paladin kind of character. But the thing is, if you look at this is vengeance. It's not justice. If it's justice, it should go to what has he done wrong, and it gets really complex. And then it's okay. What's the view? Is he guilty? Is he innocent of this? What is treason? Is an interesting question in and of itself, especially if you're looking at the English Civil War as part of it, where the king was executed for treason, which is a bizarre idea because treason originally was the concept of being against the king, where it's being against the nation. Was Loghain acting in a deliberate fashion against the nation? And I'm not entirely sure he was. Attached to that, you look at the various treaty missions. Karadin, who has destroyed so many lives with his research, wants redemption. And so he asks you to destroy the Anvil of the Void, and you can grant him that. You can grant him that redemption. Jowan, the one who's it's kind of almost his fault that the demon was summoned because he poisoned Al Eamon, asks for a chance of redemption by helping you, by either going in to the Fade, or by performing a ritual to go into the Fade at the cost of Isolde's life. It was Isolde, wasn't it? She was also my dwarf commoner, wasn't she? The name, yes, I think, I'm not sure. So, so you can grant him that redemption. You have Irving, who's given Uldred so much power politically over the Circle that's allowed him to get into this position, and accepts that the Circle should probably be destroyed, but asks for redemption, that chance to fix what he's kind of done wrong by having this extra chance that he probably... Well, does he deserve it? That's a question, but you can offer him. You can offer him that redemption. Then you have Zathrian with the Brazilian forest and everything. Does he deserve that redemption of considering he has done worse than Loghain? He has inflicted this curse upon generation after generation of this human tribe for the actions of distant relatives, and he's allowed his people to be infected by it and doesn't care. He can stop it, and yet you have the option to not kill him and allow him to earn redemption by removing the curse at the cost of his own life. All of these redemption. Loghain has the option of redemption in becoming a Grey Warden, serving for Elden, serving the whole of Thedas. No, you're not allowed to do that. You can't, and Alistair's opposed to that. That's where he draws the line. And I'm not entirely sure that's a lawful good attitude to have. I think that's out of character for Alistair. Yes, he's angry about it, and that's part of the reason why I've done it the way I've done it. So please do vote. As I said, I'm going to count the votes when I finish Witch Hunt, and I'll do a little thing looking at the tapestry. So please do vote on that, on whether you think I should count him as being executed by a separate landsmeet, or forced to join the Grey Wardens for it. We'll see what happens. Though obviously this will be much later than the Blight now that we've succeeded. The other issue, Fergus, less of an issue. Having thought on it, having just played it, I've kind of had slightly different reactions. But you notice, the human noble doesn't become the turn of higher. But, oh yeah, Fergus is back somehow. We've crowbarred him back. Liliana doesn't stay with you. She stays with you for a time. And all your companions go. Liliana stays with you for a time. The Anvil of the Void, they're still looking into the research. This is something that bothers me, is a few of the decisions you make. So we've said the Anvil of the Void, who you romanced, the companions you've picked up. In those regards, what the game is saying to those is, actually, we're going to overrule you on that. We're going to leave that open so that when we come to do a sequel, we've still got flexibility to do with that what they want. I don't think you're playing the Warden in the next game. I think is it someone called Hawk? I think, can't remember. So it'll be interesting just to see like how these little factors, how these actually factor in. Do these actually become relevant, or well, especially you've got the expansion and the DLC. Golems of Amgarek, almost pure combat, very little story. That's just the kind of DLC I'm looking for, isn't it? Alright, okay, I mentioned it. Combat. I don't know why I found it really frustrating, because when I first played this, when I played through this, the only other time I've done it, I didn't struggle this much with combat. I think maybe it's because I'm Let's Playing, and because I'm Let's Playing, I'm trying to come up with kind of commentary and talk through my strategies and my plans, which means that I'm spending brain power trying to communicate it, rather than just doing and going and, let's do this. I think I used tactics in my other one, whereas I was pausing a lot more in this one. But and I think it may also be that because I'm Let's Playing, I don't want to have failure after 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 failure. Whereas if I'm playing on my own, I'm not so bothered. You know, I've failed a few times. Okay, well I'll take a break and come back to it. I can't really fail for 20 minutes and call that a session. I don't like that idea. I want to push on and get a decent length session out. Like, this is going to be a decent length session. I think I'm approaching the 3rd hour. But yeah, I thought we were close to finishing, so I thought I would just steamroll through. So, Tim Curry. Kate Mulgrew. Thought that was Plymouth. See if I ever recognise any of these names in the cast. Claudia Black. Ooh, yes. Combat. So yeah, I don't know why I've suddenly turned off it, because when I wasn't playing it, I think that's what it is. And also, I think it's probably the fact that I've been playing this game for nearly a year, for maybe it's just a little over a year actually. And I've also been doing, before that I started Baldur's Gate Original Edition. During this I've played Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. And I think it's just, I've gotten burned out on that kind of, on the combat. Although sometimes, like as we've seen in this session, sometimes I just click with a particular battle, a particular combat. So I don't know. I don't know. It's how my brain works. It's really bizarre. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what my problem with the combat is. I've been struggling with it. I think it's also partially, this has been because of the combat, one of my least enjoyable Let's Plays that I've been currently doing. I mean, I've been enjoying it, but in comparison to the puzzle games, which are kind of stretching me in a way that I kind of enjoyed, Mass Effect, which I've really been enjoying. I'm dreading the ending of Mass Effect 3 because everyone says it's appalling, and I can rant about things that no one else complains about. CeeLo Gain. So I'm kind of not looking forward to that. Kind of puzzles. What else have I been doing at the same time as this recently? Yeah, so, I mean, out of the longest ones, it's also the one that the fewest people are watching, which tells me that you guys aren't enjoying it. Well, the people who have watched this bit probably enjoyed it, but in general, it seems like the people watch it, my other subscribers aren't enjoying this as much as my other ones, which I think subconsciously does have an impact. I don't want it to, but I think it does. Pardon me. So there is that coming into it as well, possibly, where I'm kind of looking at going, I'd rather be playing something else. So when I get to the combat and I start struggling with it, I start ranting a bit more, possibly. I don't know. Okay, let's go through the characters, because I've got to try and kind of push through the credits if I can. Thoughts on the characters. I'll start with the companions. So we'll go around. Alistair. Alistair's kind of another lawful good kind of guy. He's a bit like how my character started. or how I envisioned he would start. Because often I just go, I'm going to be a lawful good guy because that's kind of what I am in real life, in some regards. So Alice is kind of how I was going to be. I think it's interesting that he's a lot more kind of he's not confident in himself, which you see with the fact that with Morrigan's point early on, you want to follow, and later on he's kind of wary of becoming the king. It makes sense, but he has got a degree of competence behind him. He is not stupid enough to think, let's kill the only really powerful guy we've got, the one of the best fighters and best generals we've got, out of petty revenge. Sorry, I will rant about that. I will keep going on about that because I think that was stupid. Alistair's, I think, more intelligent than that scripting. Yes, I think he cares for Duncan. Yes, I think he wants to see Loghain stripped of his title and weakened and publicly denounced as this person who did all these ills. But I don't see him demanding his death and demanding his head. As I said at the time, I think that was a mechanical decision because they didn't want to have multiple people who were both sword and board type characters. Yes, Loghain can be another companion. I have had him be a companion. I think I did that. When I played through, I played as Human Nova before as well, and when I got to that point, I split off and I did one with Alistair and Honora, and I played a little bit with one where I was going to marry Honora. I didn't finish it because, quite frankly, I finished it once. I was like, I'm done. Which is I think is one of my attitudes with games that probably shouldn't be, where I'm like, I finished the story and I have enjoyed it, but I've finished the story, I've experienced the story, and I've told my story. I'm not sure if there are any differences between the two playthroughs. I think there have been, because I don't remember doing Wynn's story. I don't remember anyone else's story. I don't remember doing. I don't remember what happened with these characters. Oh, I didn't get Shale. I definitely didn't get Shale. I remember that much. Oh, I picked Haramont. I picked Balin this time. So I think, yeah, there's been a few differences, which is quite interesting, but not a huge number. I think only a small number. Yeah, that was Alistair. Zevran. I think I quite like. When I played through the other time, I didn't like Zevran that much, but I quite like that I've got a lawful good character hanging out with. I'm not entirely sure what Zevran would be. I don't want to say chaotic good. I'm trying to. Wait, it's a terrible idea trying to put people into D&D kind of alignments because they're fairly accurate, but a fairly kind of pragmatic, ends justify the means to an extent, kind of I'll do it for gold, I don't care kind of attitude of Zevran. But I think they kind of met in the middle, where Zevran ends up being a lot more kind of giving and a lot more good, for lack of a better word, where he cares about other people, who wants to do the right thing. But also, I think Daenerys kind of became a bit more kind of along that kind of pragmatic line. Sometimes you have to do stuff you don't like. Sometimes you have to do stuff you don't think is right to do the good deed, to be a good guy. Sometimes you don't get to make the right decision. Sometimes there isn't sometimes there isn't a good decision. There's always a right decision, but I don't think there's always a good decision, and that's a separate philosophical argument that we shall have at some other point. Wynn is obviously a kind of a grandmother type figure for the characters. Wynn is kind of this mentor figure to everyone, that kind of grandmotherly kind of no, I don't want to say teaching, but supportive mentor, kind of building people up to positions to kind of remind them of not to extent to remind them of their duty, but to be there with advice, maybe some Werther's originals. But she's there to be supportive, and I think that's kind of matched by her spells. She's a spirit healer, so she has a lot of healing spells and buff spells and stamina regeneration, health regeneration, group heal revival. And I think that's why I prefer using her in the combat situation. She's a much better healer than Morrigan, because she starts off with the spirit healer. character-wise, I think the key difference... I think Wynne is a lot mellower than Morrigan, whereas Morrigan's a lot more blunt and a lot more likely to call a spade a spade. Most of the times where I think she disagreed with things I did was when I lied or gave a half-truth to someone because it was the nice thing to do. And I think she's not evil, she's not nasty, she's just... What's the point? What's the point of tact? Which is an interesting question. What is the point of tact? Whereas I think she's a lot more where Morrigan is very confident and very kind of strong in her opinions. However, I think one thing that I hadn't noticed when I played a human noble in my other playthrough and had Morrigan is she's very sorry, and she's caring to an extent. She's like, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that you'd lost your parents. So there is that kind of very interesting kind of dynamic to Morrigan. Morrigan is like an onion, layers, etc. So that's an interesting thing. So they're kind of, I've got onto Morrigan from Wynne. I think, I don't know. I think if Morrigan had slightly different abilities and wasn't the full-on shapeshifter that she was, and wasn't a shapeshifter but had the spirit healer, I would probably use her. And I think it's primarily the mechanics that meant I used to Wynne more than Morrigan. Which is probably a terrible attitude to have in a role-playing game like this, but it's true. Oghren. I'm not a fan of Oghren. I know, that's mean. I like some of his characteristics. He's very kind of... Like, a lot of things are new to him. He's very kind of regretful and morose in many ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think... But I think he's very... He's in some ways a stereotypical dwarf. He drinks, he gets drunk, he makes terrible jokes that I don't find funny. He makes jokes that I don't find funny. And I think that's kind of... He's there for people who find his jokes funny. And he's meant to be a comedy character for that, to that regard. And I don't find him funny. I mean, my sense of humour is kind of, yes, minister. 3 middle-aged men sitting around talking about politics. That's something that's what I find those hilarious. Wordplay. And Oghren is not that. I don't find that funny. Other people do. Yeah. So I'm sure loads of people like Oghren. I think Ogren's probably a you like him or you don't. Kind of a very much you love or hate almost, because of that humour, which I think is part of the problem. I think if they'd emphasise some of his regret more, that he lost Branka, he feels like it's his fault that he is no longer, that he lost Branka, that Branka went off without him. He feels that's his fault. He regrets losing Felsi. He regrets picking Branka over her, maybe. Whereas his attitude is just kind of like, well, I failed with Branka, let's try Felsi, to an extent. And I think that's kind of... I think part of it is he's kind of like, yeah, he's one of the lads, woo, kind of attitude, where he's very kind of traditional, kind of laddish kind of behaviour, as someone who's never never kind of in any way shown any brain, come on, words, as someone who isn't a fan of laddish behaviour and doesn't do it, never has done. I'm not a fan of it. I don't drink alcohol, so it's like we have nothing in common. So yeah. Then there's Sten. I really do like Sten. He's another culture, which I really do like. Whereas the elves are kind of, to an extent, you can see that and you're like, okay, you're, come on, brain. You're kind of looking at the elves and going, okay, you're hippies. you're hippies in your hippie commune, and it's kind of, you care about nature, and you don't get on well with humans. Humans don't get on with elves. Yeah. But with Sten and the Qunari, it's very the different. It's very different, and you can see there's a different culture. There's different thought going on in his head in comparison to the humans, or even the elves and the dwarves, which I think is very interesting. I really do like that. I like his character. He's very kind of duty focused and honor bound, and hello. Things that I kind of see in myself more than I. So I think they kind of made Sten to almost be like the straight man to Oghren, and and you're meant to kind of gravitate a bit to Oghren, who's kind of a bit more. He's a bit more kind of down to earth and normal, and yeah. And I gravitate more to Sten. I prefer Sten. I think Sten's a better character. That's just my view. Already the Morrigan Shale, a DLC character, not the most useful one to try and predict. I do like the fact that it's like it's where you come. It comes back to the golems. Golems come from dwarves, and it's this kind of. I was a dwarf. I was a mortal thing and not always made of rock. What does that mean for me? Kind of finding herself, finding her identity, and it'd be interesting. Just I wonder if you do meet Shale in dwarf form in one of the later games. That would be very interesting. Just to see what happens with that. I do like the fact that all the way through the game she calls you it until the very last thing she says, where she says you. That's very nice. Liliana, I'll finish with Liliana. I'm surprised I actually managed to get through all the credits by rambling. I didn't think. I thought I'd be walking away halfway through. Liliana. I think she's very. I think right. She's she's religious. I think one big question that few people have about her is the Marjolaine one. Who is she? Who is Liliana? Is she the religious, good, invert commas, character who is very kind and caring? Or is she, I don't want to use the word evil, but is she more neutral? Is she right? Like she says, like I enjoyed the thrill when we fought Marjolaine. I think it was right to kill her and blah 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 blah. Am I slipping? Is this who I am? What's that? And obviously there's a variety of questions. This is who you are, or the one I give. Evil doesn't worry about being good, which is perfectly true. And I think in my view she is religious, and I think she does care, and I think she slips. I think a lot of people struggle with various temptations to do things. That doesn't necessarily make them evil. It's the act, and yeah, we're getting into theology here. I think Liliana is very sweet and very caring. I think she and Wynne and Alistair have a lot in common, and I think the reason I gravitated to those three as my normal party, and why I romanced Liliana over Morrigan, is partly because I see myself, or facets of myself, in those three. I think that's why I end up romancing most people, actually, in video games, is if there's a choice, is I end up picking the one that's similar to me in some capacity, but that's how love works in the real world, in many ways. So yeah, Liliana is... I think it's quite interesting, because yes, she is a rogue, and she's a bard, and that meant she was a spy, and because she was an Orlesian minstrel, she was a spy, and she did all these horrible things. You see that in, well, you see some of the things she does, like she steals, she maneuvers, she kills people, and you see that in Liliana's song, and I think she's betrayed, and I think that's part of my view where she wants to get out. She would want to get out of that, And so she goes to the chantry, and I think that's where she starts having her religious visions. I'm not sure. It would feel a bit weird for me to say, oh yes, this is what you're like, and you're also religious, and I'm going to back up your claims, and believe you. So that's an interesting thought. So yes, sorry, ramble. So yes, as I said at the beginning of the credits, I'm going to take a bit of a break before doing Awakening. I've been getting a little angry at the combat, so I'm going to take a break from any games with this kind of turn-based but real-time kind of combat. At least I hope I don't pick another one. And then come back to Awakening. Probably won't do Golems of Amgarak if it's as combat-heavy as people have said. I mean, I've looked into it, and Variax skipped it because it was all combat and no story, he said. So I'll have a look at it. I might look at the tapestry, see if there are any choices from it. We'll have a look. But then the third... Then after that, it'll be either... after Awakening, it'll probably be Witch Hunt. Possibly Golems, but I doubt it. So yes, a little bit... in a bit of time, we will... I think Gaheris is in Awakening. Or the Warden we take over, which will be Gaheris. Will make it. He'll be in Awakening, and that'll be the next time we see Gaheris. I'm not sure what's going to follow this, but yes, thanks for watching, if you have been. I hope you've enjoyed it. So yes, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for watching.